good evening, everyone. We're starting one more live, and today I actually want to speak with the person that I have spoken to in the beginning of my series, and this is an extraordinary Finnish singer, Camilla Nylund, and she will now join us. Yes. Camilla,
Hi.
hyvää iltaa.
Hyvää iltaa.
Thank you for joining me again, and maybe I will ask some questions that I didn't have time to ask last time.
Okay. Is the light good?
Yeah. Well, excellent light. Yes, a beautiful sky behind you.
Yes, it's a beautiful sky in Dresden tonight.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can't say the same. Well, I'm just in the suburban small studio, so I can't boast with good landscapes. But yeah, but let's talk about you.
But it looks nice anyway.
I wanted to ask, were there any memories that haunted you during these times? Maybe some performances that came to your mind. You kind of woke up and you had a dream of you being in some performances.
Well, I must say it has been 3 months of really a bit surrealistic, because sometimes when you go to bed at night you think, oh my God, what is happening in this world? And then the next morning when you wake up you think, oh, it's a beautiful day, but then you start thinking, oh, we have Corona times, and I don't know how the future will look. So it has been like ups and downs, I must say.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, but in these times when all the past as kind of as you lived it through comes back to you, did you have certain memories of your performances of the last years?
Yes, of course. I was thinking about the performances, and especially when we had all these live streams. And I was watching myself yesterday. I wanted to see it because I had never seen it before, my Arabella from Vienna. And then we had this Fraune Schatten from October, also from Vienna. And it feels very strange to see yourself and listen to this music, and then and you see also all these musicians playing. And then you think, oh my God, when will this be possible again, to play opera, proper opera, like with big orchestra, Strauss or Wagner? And I was very lucky the last season because I had a lot of big productions, and also my debut at the Met. I mean, and now I just heard yesterday that the Met is canceling everything until New Year's Eve, and I'm thinking about all these singers who have lost so many jobs. And I think for the American singers singing mainly at the Met or in other theaters in the United States, it's really, really difficult times, because now in Europe, I mean, we are hoping that things will develop in the right direction, that we will be able to start the season here in autumn.
Have you heard that the Finnish National Opera also has moved the Valkyrie
to
January?
Yes, I read about that, but I read that they instead are playing Covid fan tutte, what I think will be very interesting, and probably also I don't know, maybe also a bit funny maybe for the singers to do, but it's of course a very serious theme and serious times that we are living, because in March we didn't really know what was was going to happen, and now of course we know more, but we don't know enough still, and we don't have a cure, we don't have a vaccine, we don't know how we will manage to start a normal life. But I think that is the most important thing for everybody, not only for us singers, that we want to live again.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess we all kind of begin to think, if not in God, then in some providence. You kind of wake up with the hope that somebody somewhere will solve it for you. And now all these salvation plans have moved into the hands of the medics and of people who do with epidemiology, which is strange because we never thought that the epidemiologist would save us.
Would save the world and save the humanity. No, it's really something that seems and feels very weird, that everybody in the whole world is in the same situation. We have never had this before. Maybe before in the during some other epidemics, but now, since I think the Second World War, the world has never stopped like this, and then it was a war. I mean, it was still in some of the parts of the world, life was still going on, but now this is really something that has never happened before, and I think it will. Yeah, we don't really know what it means for the humanity, for children, for old people that have not been able to be outside to meet their relatives. It's a very sad and weird situation.
I wonder, what do you think when you look at yourself in your old performances? What are exactly the thoughts that cross your mind? Do you relieve this particular performance, like when you saw yourself in Frau ohne Schatten from Vienna? What did you think?
Well, of course, I'm a very self-critical singer, so I always think, oh my God, how do I sound here, and how do I look, and how do I get this tone and so on. But of course, in one way, I remember also how it felt to sing this particular performance, how it felt to sing this moment and this line, and yeah, it's something that you think, will we ever have this again, and is it just something that belongs to the past, and when will we be able to experience this again, and also to have the audience. I mean, we had fantastic audiences during Frau ohne Schatten because everybody wanted to see it in Vienna. It was an extraordinary cast, and yeah, so this is really something that of course goes into my mind, and it feels so strange that it's possible in such a short time to stop everything, and like that we just have these things in the past, and we don't know what the future will bring.
Yes, I was thinking that in a way, you know, I know it's a very strange risk to take, but I was thinking, if they offer the risk, you see the Valkyrie as you had before, and you can be ill afterwards. I think I could take this risk in a way, you know. It's but
I mean, for these singers now who have been waiting, because this production in Helsinki was going to be now in spring, and then they postponed it to autumn, and now they had to postpone it again. I mean, it's and I read also that now Esa-Pekka Salonen is not going to conduct it anymore. It's Susanna Mälkki. And that's the problem, that many singers, many conductors, directors, we have plans for many years in advance, but this is something that now is totally not possible anymore, because of course I have also now plans for next year and the year after, and I'm really looking forward to many new roles, and I don't know how that will feel if it's not going to be in this way, and they have to cancel more. And I was going to do a production this autumn also that is now cancelled, and yeah, I have no idea how things are going to develop. I mean, I'm still hoping that Vienna, because I have performances in Vienna right in September, and they are planning to open the opera house then, and I really hope that this will be possible.
Will you be ready and eager to perform first to the half full house and in some distancing situation on stage?
I have not been thinking about this yet. How will it be possible to perform opera with all these new information that we have, and all these things that we have to consider? It's just something, it feels very strange, and yeah, I don't really know how it will feel to perform a performance when you are used to touching your and be close to your partner on stage, and this will not be possible. I have no idea. I hope, of course, that I don't know if there are no ill people after the summer, that things will maybe change also in this direction, but we don't know.
I'm also worried as a person from Russia who has quite a lot of cases. I'm also worried that maybe things begin to happen, but I will never see them, you know, for a year or something.
And that's, I think, there are so many things that will change, because how will it be possible for singers? We have been used to be flying all over the world. I mean, I was in the US last autumn, Christmas and New Year, and I was flying back in January. I was working in Berlin. I was working in Dresden at the same time, going back and forth, and I'm used to taking a flight, and now I'm really also worried about that. How am I going to fly, or am I going to take my own car now when I will be able to do some concerts? Because later this month I have some concerts who are going to take place, and I'm quite emotional about this, because it's going to be incredible to be on stage again, even if it's not an opera performance, but at least singing in front of an audience.
Can you tell us what would it be?
Yes, I'm the first concert will be in Vienna, because Dominique Mayer, I mean, it's his last season, and it's very sad that he has to stop his season as the boss of the opera, and cannot play any opera, and so yeah, but he decided to make it possible for some of us singers to make a recital, and I heard there will only be 100 people in the audience, which will be very, very strange, since the Vienna State Opera, I think, fits many over 1,000 people, between 1,000 and 2,000 people. So and to only have 100 people in the audience. I mean, I saw pictures of from these concerts now in Wiesbaden, and of course people sitting very far away from each other, and yeah, it feels very weird, and it looks weird. But I mean, we have to make a start. We cannot just sit and wait. We singers, we need to perform. We need to do our job. It's a way of living, and it breaks my heart to and I'm thinking about all the other singers who are not who doesn't know when are they going to be able to perform. That's
I have seen
really difficult.
Maybe you have seen Britain has started this live recitals from a Wigmore Hall, but without an audience. So every lunchtime they kind of do the broadcast, and
like
it was
a streaming.
Stephen Huff, and it was Lucy Crowe today. So probably many other singers could start singing, but without any audience.
Yes.
At the moment.
And that is, of course, yeah. I mean, what is a performance without an audience? We love our audience, and we need audience. But I mean, it's of course a start. I mean, that's what they were doing also at the Bayerische Staatsoper. Also, they did these streaming concerts.
Do you now have an opportunity to go to a local theater in Dresden to practice?
No, I haven't done that. I have only been practicing in my own apartment. So, but that's not, of course, not the same to have like the space of a theater.
I've also read this article actually by Salonen, where he says that an orchestra is a living animal, and when you stop it from performing, the links between people that were forged during the previous years wouldn't be working so well if and when they come back. What do you think? Would the orchestras be able just to come back and play?
That's a thing that I have been thinking about, because of course I know a lot of orchestra musicians, but and some of them I've been asking how it feels to not be playing together. And I mean, they have been starting, of course, to play, like some musicians together, chamber music and stuff like that. But it must be very strange to just be practicing in your apartment, just your own instrument, and not be able to play a big symphony. I mean, we had all these videos and streams with when the Met Orchestra was playing, and other orchestras were playing together with the earphones in their ears, and they were and I was surprised that it was possible to do this. I mean, that it worked so well, but it's I hope this is not the future. I mean, we need to come back to where we have been. Of course, things are going to change maybe in a way because of the virus, but I mean, we need big orchestras to be able to play. We want to sing Wagner, we want to sing Strauss, and they want to play Bruckner and Mahler and things like that, but only God knows when this will be possible.
Yeah, actually now when you're talking, I'm thinking that we are almost like talking from space, and we look at the Earth and think, well, they existed. Are we going to come back to Earth, or are we going to be in flying conditions somewhere in space?
It's very surrealistic. It's a strange feeling.
Can I ask you more questions, but not about the present, but about the past? I actually wanted to ask you things that I didn't ask last time. I wanted to ask you about, firstly, the conductors. You know, I saw that you worked with Maris Janssens for the recording of Mahler 8, right? And, well, he was so famous here in St. Petersburg. You know, his father was the head of St. Petersburg Philharmonic, and I met Maris myself several times. So I was wondering if you could tell me what were your memories of working with him?
Well, of course, the Mahler 8 is a very big piece, and we were many soloists. But what I know about Maris, and I have experienced him in other concerts when he was conducting in Vienna, that he was a person who was like fighting for the music. He was obsessed with to make a special kind of, yeah, he was only stopping when he was happy with the with the result. And yeah, it was of course amazing with somebody that has so much power, so much energy. And yeah, it was really sad to hear that he passed away, and that he I saw that they showed a movie on TV after he died, and it was very interesting to see how he started also with his father, with Arvid was his name, I think.
It's strange because he shares the Soviet history here, and he actually lived in St. Petersburg, but he's considered as a Latvian conductor.
Yes,
so.
Yes.
And are there in your mind, are there sort of compartmentalizations of conductors, like this I like, this are like this, so kind of,
well,
do you put them into groups?
Well, of course, the most wonderful thing is when you have the feeling when you perform a performance or a concert with a conductor that you understand each other without words. You don't have to speak, or you don't have to just make music together. And that's some really special, that you can create some really special moments where you get like goosebumps, and you feel now time could stop, because it's such a great moment.
But
and
how do you...
there are conductors that are really, I mean, some of conductors are really obsessed to how do you say, they want to possess everything, and they want to decide everything. But sometimes when you let go, and you notice that you give and take from each other, it's a great experience.
Actually, many musicians talk about this non-verbal communication, and as an anthropologist who wants to go inside these things, I want to ask how they happen. Like, you can't read the thought of a person if he or she doesn't speak, or can you?
No, but it's I mean, with art, you cannot explain everything in arts, or you cannot explain everything in music, because it's something that you feel, and it's something, and sometimes it's a feeling just in this moment. And so it's if you are a musicologist, it's different. But when you are a performing musician, performing singer, performing musician, it's the moment that is that is important. And
so
and this moment will never come back again, because it's just now.
So in a way, you become sort of like a Buddhist who is always living in the present. So music is kind of the intense feeling of the present, right?
Yes.
And are there in this, like, are these moments as good as others, or do you remember some epiphanies when you were flying even on top of yourself somewhere?
Yes, of course. I mean, that there are. You cannot, of course, have these moments all the time, but there are some concerts or performances when you think that everything was so easy and so wonderful. Sometimes you have to struggle more, and when you are performing and you don't feel well, or yeah, there are difficulties. But these moments where everything is like, where you have this great feeling, those are, of course, those things that you cherish, and you want to that's what you want to have again. And that's why you go on rehearsing, and you go on singing, and that's why it's also so difficult now for many performers, because we don't have this now. We are like flowers without
addicted to
sunshine.
this. Did you feel like this when you were performing Rusalka in Paris, and how was working with Susanna Malki? How is she special as a conductor?
Well, it's of course special that she's a woman. I think so, because I have not been working with so many female conductors, like 2, 3, 4 or something. And I think it's of course wonderful that there are no more, I think, because Simon Young and Karen Kamensek.
Dalia Stashevska.
No, I've not been working with no. And yeah, so there are some female conductors that are really making wonderful music, and I think it's something special to have this in front of an orchestra, because but I mean, it should not be like a big issue, actually, because we are all musicians, and I mean, there are, of course, when you sing an opera, there cannot be male singers singing my roles and the opposite. But as a conductor, it should not make a difference if it's a woman or if it's a man. And I was very happy that I was able to finally work with Susanna, because I haven't worked with her before. And we have some plans for some concerts in the future, and I think she's doing a great job. I mean, she's super well educated in conducting, and also she knows the music, and she wants to do well, and she wants to also create something extraordinary.
Does she talk? Does she explain things, or is she one of those non-verbal?
No, sometimes she explains, but she also listens, because she knew that I had been singing the role very many times. So, of course, we had to find also the right tempo together, and I mean, the Bastille is such a big house, and so I was a bit worried about that the orchestra would not be too loud, but I think we had a nice time, and it was so great that we were like 3 Finnish women working in the same production with Karita also. That was really great.
I'm so happy that I saw this.
It's great that you were able to come to Paris.
Well, I actually come to Paris quite often, and Opera Bastille is very well known because it has this cheap standing seats. Well, it had before, I don't know how it be. You queue for €5 seats, and then you can see any production of €5 there. But on that occasion, I was given a press ticket. But I know this particular house well, because, you know, as a student, as a freelance person, you have to understand which opera house gives cheap tickets and queue for
well, that's what I did also when I was in Vienna, and when I was studying in Salzburg, and I went to Vienna. I also had went on a standing place to see many performances, and that was fantastic back then. I mean, it's still possible, and you don't have to pay so much money, and that is the special thing about Vienna too. And this standing seats will probably not be possible now in Corona times, because people cannot stand next to each other so close. So
well, that's a pity, because I even thought, you know, when you say that the number of audiences is reduced, then it means that the revenue which was supposed to come then would be divided between those 500 who are lucky to join a new production. So a new question would be whether it would now be an elite performance with tickets like 300 euros each, you know, with this special people being in the
But
audience.
I don't think the tickets will be. I don't know yet how much they will cost, but they will not be so expensive, I think, because they cannot charge, I think, so much money for a recital. But it's there are many things changing for us singers, because when you cannot have so many people in the audience, the opera houses and the people organizing concerts, they are asking us also if we can be happy with only half of our fee. So these things are also changing, and yeah, I don't know how it is going to be now in the autumn when the performances are starting, and we have our contracts that we have signed with our fees, and if they are going to change that too. So if we have to negotiate about that. But in this moment, I said, okay, I will. It's okay for me to do this, because I really want to start working again. I think it's yeah, as I said, we have to start showing that it is possible to do concerts, and yeah, and the audience is also waiting for this, that they can come and see live performances. I think it's of course great with these streaming concerts, but I must say it has been too much now for these 3 months, and I can't really stand it anymore.
Actually, I think that maybe in new times you won't have the problem of mobile phones, because people would be so tired of looking into their phone.
Looking at their phone, yes.
Yeah. So basically,
I hope so.
When they see you on stage, finally, everyone will be like in some paradise, and phones will be switched off, like for life. Forever. I wanted to ask, can you compare the big halls that you performed everywhere, but could you, again, as conductors, put them into some groups? Like, can you describe what is the Met like? What is the Vienna Opera like? What is for you maybe the Finnish National Opera? How do you how do you work in your mind with the space that you are singing in?
Well, I must say, I mean, every opera house has its own charm, and when I came to Germany in '95, I started working in Hanover, and Hanover was a beautiful house from outside, but very modern, because it was also destroyed during the war. So it was like 70s inside, and 60s, 70s, and I thought it was very big, and then my next contract was in Dresden, and that was of course wonderful when you came here at the Semper Oper on stage, because it's such a beautiful house, and the acoustics are also fantastic. And I noticed that now I was very lucky that I was singing in Dresden for so many years frequently. I was starting in the ensemble '99, but I was singing also as a guest 2 years before, and I stopped like 2010, 11, and after that I noticed how great this house is, because now when I come back now and then to sing performances here, it's really great. It's not such a really big house, but it has wonderful acoustics. So I like, of course, these kind of old fashioned houses. I mean, when you compare them to Bastille, that is really very big, and I always think, oh my God, can they hear me there? But it depends, of course, on the conductor, and it depends on how the decoration is on the stage, that it can transform the voice, and these are things that you also learn during your years as an opera singer, that you learn how to use your voice so that it can travel in different kinds of houses. I mean, Vienna is also a wonderful place to sing. And I was really afraid about the Met because everybody told me it's so huge. But it was so amazing, even if I was singing a role like Marschallin, where you have really this kind of pianissimo places. It was also possible to do that there because the acoustics at the Met are also incredible. And we had a wonderful staging in that production. So I was really amazed how well it worked, because when I was standing on the stage, it didn't feel like it was a very huge house. I mean, it's big, but you were just singing normally, like if I would have been in Helsinki.
Is the Met bigger or smaller than Covent Garden?
Which house? You mean the Met?
London, yes. Is the Met bigger than?
Yes, the Met is very
the Royal
big.
Opera House.
The Met has, I think, 4,000 seats. So it's very huge.
I remember, also the cheapest seats at the Royal Opera are in the amphitheater, and you almost feel like you are flying over stage because you are so far that each singer is kind of like this. And the Finnish National Opera, it's a modern, it's a very technically a modern house, but relatively not so big, right? You kind of feel comfortable as a viewer in it. How do you feel when you sing there?
Yeah, I like it very much because it's when you stand on stage. I like how the colors are when you look into the audience. These warm wooden colors with the lights. Also, I think it's I mean, from outside, it's of course very some kind of chilly in a way, but it suits maybe the Finnish the Finnish landscape and how the architecture since many years. But inside it's a great house and has the stage is really good.
Can I ask also about some hidden processes in your singing? How do you actually prepare in the last hour before the performance?
Well, I usually come to the theater like it depends on if I have to sing immediately at the beginning or if I'm later, about 1 hour and a half if I have to start the performance. And so I like this kind of rituals. And I go into my dressing room, I put my stuff there, and then I go and say hi to the people working, like putting my makeup, my dressers, and then it depends on if I have to go to the makeup immediately or I start warming up. Then I maybe go to the canteen to get a coffee, and and I'm sometimes I'm looking through the whole role. It depends on if I have been singing it a lot, or if I have to remember some parts or look at some things. So these kind of rituals are very important, and I think they are getting more and more important the older you get.
Do you have to see the audience to have a glimpse of an audience before you step on stage, like from the back of the stage?
Well, sometimes if it's an opening night, then I'm of course curious if it's sold out or if there are many seats available. But usually I see the audience when I come on stage, and some of the productions you cannot even see anybody see any faces, and some productions the lights are different so that you can also see people watching you.
And what do you feel at the moment of applause in the event?
Well, it's yeah, it's of course, if you get a nice applause, then it's you are happy because you are, it's wonderful. That's our payment also after the performance, that people like it and applaud. That's wonderful. But there are, of course, in some cities and some countries they don't applaud very long, and in other countries you can have a really, really long applause. So that's also different from country to country.
Mm-hmm. And what happens when the curtain goes, like when we don't see you anymore, but
when it goes down?
Yes, I always hear some sounds and some cheers and some interesting noises from behind the curtain. So what happens with you and your colleagues when you say...
Sometimes if it has been like a great performance, or it was, yeah, that you are cheering behind the curtain and you are like hugging your colleagues and yeah, you are happy together before then the curtain goes up. And always in Vienna, it's always because you have to do fast to clear the stage sometimes, so that the soloists can go out to take a bow. And yeah, it's a wonderful feeling actually after the curtain goes down and the performance is over. It's a very cozy, wonderful moment.
Is it true that as a musician you always have this late nights in the restaurants, and you have to keep like to keep your form, you have to watch it so that you don't eat too much too late, like after the performances?
Well, that's of course difficult, but it's very hard to not go after a performance and sit with friends and have maybe a glass of wine and chat with, because sometimes you have you go with colleagues or you go with friends that came to see the performance, and that's also something that belongs to a performance. It's actually very sad if you just have to go home and sleep. And of course, usually you cannot start sleeping immediately. But sometimes it's also, if you are very tired, and it's of course also nice to just go home and maybe watch a movie or just sit in front of the TV, or have a chat with your family or friends just at home. So it doesn't have to be a restaurant always.
Who is the one whose opinion is important for you after the premiere? Who do you listen to, and whose feedback counts for you?
Well, everybody. I mean, our musical advisors, the pianists that have been rehearsing with us, the assistants, the musical assistants, the conductor, the director. There are so many people. You get advice the whole time, and you have to, as a singer, you have to think about so many things. So it's, but you just have to try to stay focused and not. I mean, everything that people tell you, you have to use to make a better performance.
And what can distract you during the performance? And can you describe a situation where there was a big, huge distraction unexpectedly, but you managed to overcome it?
Yeah, well, sometimes there is somebody, it has happened that somebody in the audience was shouting something, or somebody is coughing, or somebody has gets ill in the audience and they have to get this person out. that of course distracts, or when we have like a performance and somebody has to jump in a performance and they don't maybe know the piece so well, and so you have to be afraid that something maybe goes wrong. And but that's how it is. I mean, there is this saying, the show must go on, and you just have to try to not worry about that.
I want to ask you about the piece that you sang for in many places, but which is based on such a, well, we would say even play that kind of is, well, Salome by Strauss. I was watching it yesterday from the Met with Akarita Matila, and I was thinking, what does happen in your mind when you have to sing it? Because psychologically, it's such an extraordinary piece. You have to want to kiss the head of which was severed from the body of your beloved man, and
yeah,
I wonder.
It's a very weird situation and a very weird opera. Of course, I would never do that probably in reality. And but that's the wonderful thing about to be an opera singer, that you can do that on stage. And of course, when my children were younger, they were sometimes also watching me also in these kind of performances, and then they just saw behind the stage or beside the stage shortly. I mean, it's not a performance for small children, so so sometimes they said, "Oh my God, Mom, what did you do with that head?" And it's of course a very bloody story, but it's I mean, it's a play, and it's theater, and in that moment you have to try to convince yourself and also convince the audience that you are that person in that moment. And yeah, that's why I became an opera singer, because I love playing theater and singing at the same time. That's my profession, and I it's a great feeling.
Does it take you long to get the Salome out of your state of mind after the performance?
Well, it's I must say it's well, it's not really, it's of course not a long piece. I mean, it's about 2 hours, but it feels sometimes like a marathon, because it's you are on stage almost the whole time, or actually the whole time. It depends on if you have to go off the stage to dress for the dance, or if you are staying on stage. But I always love the performance also, because you don't have time to worry in between, because you have to sing the whole time, and of course you have breaks, but then you are listening to the other singers, and you also have to act during these times when you are not singing so much. And it was always one of my favorite roles, because it gives you so much energy, and of course it takes also a lot of energy, but it's a role where you really have to give like 110%.
And a question on Wagner. What is your favorite Wagner opera, and what is your least favorite Wagner opera to sing in?
Well, my favorite Wagner opera right now, what would I say? Well, I like to sing Sieglinde very much, because I think it's a wonderful role, and of course I've sang Elisabeth in Tannhäuser a lot. I've sang Elsa a lot, and I've sang also Eva, and I thought I would never sing Eva again, and now I sang it last summer. Well, this summer I was going to open the Bayreuther Festspiele with that role, but as it's all cancelled, and I jumped in here and sang Eva in Dresden in January and February. But it's not my favorite role, because it's it's Meistersinger is the opera where there are the most important roles are the male roles, and I like, as I told you before, I like to be on stage the whole time. I like to have a lot to do, and I'm looking forward very much then, because I'm learning Isolde, and I'm looking forward to that. I cannot tell you yet when or where I'm singing it, but it's a role that is coming, and so I hope that will be a great role for me.
Then you must like Die Tote Stadt, because there you
Very
are on
much,
stage all the
very
time.
Yes, I love to sing Marietta, because it's a crazy role, and but a wonderful role. And I like these roles where you have to really sing high, and you have to sing low, and you have to be dramatic, and you have to really, show different faces of yourself. I don't like these roles where it's all calm the whole time. You have to. I need also some power.
I also understand that I haven't asked you last time. You sang in 2 Russian operas, Mussorgsky, Хованщина, right? And Evgeny Onegin, you sang Tatiana. I'm very interested. Could you tell me more about these experiences, and whether you are fond of Russian composers?
Well, I think that it's really great to sing in Russian, even if I don't speak Russian. But like, I also had to learn Rusalka in Czech, and I don't speak Czech either. But I sang my first Tatiana 2001. It was in Finland in a production, and it's a fantastic piece, and the music is so beautiful. I mean, Tchaikovsky is really great, and so it's this kind of music that really moves your heart. And also the story, to sing Tatiana, you have to develop, you have to be this young girl, and at the end you are like a grande dame, but you also have to of course not forget about where she comes from and what happened to her, and it's really heartbreaking, actually, this how she sends Onegin away. And even if I think she's really in love with him even at the end, but she cannot, she thinks she has to, probably maybe she doesn't trust him also. Maybe it's some kind of because he was hurting her very much, and I think that she thinks he's not, even if she's in love with him, and he says he's in love with her, and now he understands what went wrong. But I think that she thinks that this love also doesn't have a future, and that they cannot maybe be happy together anyway.
Or it could have been just Pushkin's idea of a dramatic ending, and it could have been
not a happy ending. Well, I mean, I don't know. I think the Russian soul is also, you have to suffer a lot, and that's of course what is wonderful with theater. I mean, why would we only want to be in a performance to see a happy ending? That's why people love opera. I mean, that's why people cry at Madame Butterfly or La Bohème and all these operas. It's all these dramatic, sad stories. It's about great feelings, great that's opera. And
I wanted to ask, like, I can understand that you are going through the role and experiencing, and I can also understand that what every other performer is doing. But I wondered, what does, say, a musician of an orchestra or a conductor who is with you, but sometimes the musicians, they can't see the performance at all. They are sitting there and they are with their backs and they don't see anything. While the conductor is thinking of the whole structure, that everything goes right. So it seems that everybody has their own different psychological experiences of an opera.
Yes,
so
but I have experienced many times. I mean, like in Vienna and also in other houses like in Dresden, you can sometimes see the musicians also when you are standing on stage. And many of the musicians, they come to you also afterwards and tell you that they love this special moment. I mean, sometimes we have like with the violins or with a flute player or oboe player, or we have this kind of duets during the performance, and they are so it's yeah, they are listening to you.
And then we could say that the conductor is sort of like a god that has everyone in his mind.
Yeah, he's like watching. He's almighty and watching all over you.
Yeah, exactly. And now I wanted to ask, I forgot if I asked this last time, but I wanted to ask you whether the audiences are different in different countries. Are audiences in New York different from London, from Vienna, from Dresden?
Yes, they are different.
And how do you know when you said that sometimes you don't see them well?
Well, I know you notice that how the applause is, and you notice it when people are maybe coming to you backstage, speaking with you. So it's and then when you go to see performances of yourself and watching performances, then you of course also see what kind of audience you have in that city, and so I mean, like when you are in Vienna, there are always a lot of people coming backstage, and they want to tell you afterwards what they thought about the performance, or so it's it always feels very special in Vienna to perform in Vienna.
I want to ask, I've been talking to many people actually in these 2 months somehow, and that for me broke the usual hierarchy that I thought, well, I think that the music world has. You can't just talk to anyone, everyone has press agents and people who got them from other people. So my question is, do you think that musical world is equal or unequal? And whether these hierarchies have the right to exist, or sometimes they are artificial and just built to create the personas, the divas, or whatever, the big maestros from normal people, or it's true that it exists.
Well, of course there is singers that are more famous than other singers, and also conductors and other musicians, but yeah, that's something that has been built up, maybe of your presence on the opera stage, or you have had a PR person creating this kind of picture of you, and that you are. It's something really strange, because I was never thinking about that I was like a famous singer or something, because I'm just doing my job. And then I always think when I read something, she's one of the famous sopranos of the world, and I think, well, how is this possible? I'm just a small a girl from Finland, and I'm but of course I have been working now for many years, and it's probably, I was, in a way, I was also lucky to be able to perform with famous conductors, because they can, of course, famous conductors and famous directors, they can also help you move forward, and that you have important productions that get a lot of press and people like you in that role, and they want to have you also in other theaters to perform this role. And of course, when you sing Strauss, Richard Strauss, and you sing Wagner, we are not so many singers doing that, so it's probably also more easy to become famous in this